Nigel, 1990s, that's where it all started.
Yeah, basically a bit of background from myself. Yeah, left school in 1979 and went down the coal mines in Mansfield as an apprentice fitter. I did that for about 4.5 years, and then I joined the army. It's basically coincided with the coal miners' strike at that time, '84, coming to so I went in the army, stayed in the army for around about 6 years, served in Northern Ireland, Germany, Cyprus, and that was my 6 years. I left in 1990, and fortunately, my brother worked for Zapata, which is one of non-existent anymore, like many drilling contractors, but Zapata were a pretty big company at that time. George Bush family got money involved in that, and I went down to Yarmouth. I'd already got my survival, so I did that in the army, and I went down to Yarmouth, and I went to the Zapata office. The woman in the office, her name was Diana Green, still remember it. She's the one who hired. None of this go through all this rigmarole we go through today. She hired you, sent you for your medical, got your medical. 3 days later, back down to Yarmouth, offshore, for a 3-week trip as a roustabout. Yeah,
The good
that
old
was
days.
my introduction. Yeah, on a jack-up. It was called the Bonanza, which is a very old jack-up. Free swinging blocks, Kelly, spinning chains, tongs. I never saw an iron roughneck until 1999. Yeah. So that was basically my introduction there. And one of the things I do remember about the rig, so obviously communal showers, everything is quite small and compact. The coffee shop, you can only get 4 people in there at one time, which is good and bad, good that you can't get everybody in there and nobody's skiving, but bad that, you can't get everybody in at once because you can't get tea break over with. Tea breaks were 15 minutes time from the rig floor to the coffee shop and back.
Mm.
Well, yeah, but
Timed,
another thing
timed as
well,
well.
yeah, yes, well, not for you timed yourself because there was a room one time a day that Santa Fe did time people, but it was more of an inbuilt time, and we did ourselves, so you can make sure the other guy got a break, otherwise if you got to like 2:30 and talking for coffee break, then nobody was going for coffee break, so everybody screwed them up. And then the thing about I do remember that, was obviously we didn't have obviously no internet then, no phone calls once a week on the radio phone, but we did have Sky TV, and I also remember MTV was always playing every morning and maybe every night. So that's one of the things about that MTV. And the food is excellent, basic food, soup, 2 veg, mashed potatoes and meat and a pudding. And that was it. You're in and out 15 minutes as well. So it didn't take too long.
How was the coal mines?
The coal mine, I enjoyed working in the coal mines. I mean, I used to go to college to do my apprenticeship, but and when I was down the coal mine, you couldn't go on the coal face, you're 18. And then I was assigned to a fitter there, and you'd go on the coal face. And I think the longest coal face we had was 300 yards, but that was all crawling. You had to crawl. It was only the height was maybe, I would say, 2.5 feet high between the floor and the chock on the top. So you had to crawl 300 yards on your hands and knees, carrying your tool bag and your snap bag. Yeah, so sometimes some coal faces you got down to the pit bottom, which was the pit I worked to was a mile deep, and it took us maybe, I'm not exaggerating, but I think it took maybe like 30 seconds to get down from top to bottom in the lift, in the cage, we call it a cage. And then from the pit bottom, the furthest you might walk an hour and a half to get to the coal face.
Mm.
Well, your shift starts when you dropped in on the top, so you could walk an hour and a half, use band riding belts, or sometimes you had little trains. So, but your shift was 7.25 hours down there. Yeah, so it wasn't too bad.
Guys, I'm sorry to interrupt the show, and I really hope you're enjoying it. One thing I'm going to ask you, if you're listening to it and you're not liking, following or subscribing to it, could I ask a massive favour that you do? It really helps the show, it helps me bring in more people, and it helps me get more stories out there, which in favour brings more stories back in. Let's get back to it.
How many years did you spend in the coal mines?
Just over 4 years, yeah. From 17 till 21, yeah.
That must have been some experience, was it?
It was, yeah, because obviously, the heavy machinery down there as well, and there is where there's not really, there's a safety culture. As in safety culture, you know, people watch out what you're doing, but it's also you're learning from people who've done it for all their life. You know, you know, they're teaching you how to listen to the noise. You know, you've also got your little Davy lamp to check out with you know, CH4 gas, methane gas, and well, basically you were taught by the older guys. You know, you learn from the older guys. So yeah, I mean, I didn't get claustrophobic down there. Some people do, but I didn't. I get more claustrophobic when you do your go in them lifeboats and close the doors on them things. I get more claustrophobic then than I do on the kind of coal mine. But yeah, one time I was down there and I was on a job as a fitter. And we were installing a monorail, and then something happened. The back end of the monorail fell. We're talking about an RSJ joist, about maybe 12 feet long and about say 6 inches. And anyway, I was on the back end. It came down and caught me right on the back of the head. And you know, obviously it knocked me to the ground. But anyway, the thing about it is this is how what difference it was. So you think, oh, concussion, right? You think, what about concussion? No talk about concussion. They said, oh, we'll clean it off. Go and get yourself out to the medical centre. So I walked out 5 miles, well, from there, which is a long way away. I think it was about 3.5, 4 miles. Walked the 4 miles to the fit bomb, went up to the medical centre. They put 4 or 5 stitches in, and I went home. There's no talk about concussion. So today, if you bang your head on a door, you've got to have a concussion test.
Yeah.
Or if you had a football, you have a concussion test. You know.
Yeah. Gone are the days of men were men, I guess, eh?
Well, not supposed to be men were men. I think there was a bit of ignorance there as well, you know.
Yeah.
But it is sort of,
think,
you know, I mean, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, it's a bit more. It's a bit more. I think people take things a lot more seriously, obviously, nowadays than back in then. And unfortunately, you know, you look at some of the incidents in the 80s and stuff as well. Yeah.
No, it's important.
So
it's important to take it serious. Definitely important to take it seriously. I mean, I've seen cases where, you know, down a coal mine, a bloke, he might be working a lump of coal on his hand, you know, and he's took his glove off and his finger end's missing, you know, from his knuckle. I've seen people who've lost their arms, people who've lost their legs on big machinery, you know, and all by, you know, trying to take a shortcut. You know, I mean, the guy with the rock falling on his hand, well, he had his hand over a rail, so therefore you got 2 forces, you know. But the guy lost his arm trying to do a shortcut, clean a conveyor belt roller with a piece of metal. The metal got caught and took his arm in, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, I've never seen the accident, I just know the story.
I tell you, there was a lot of incidents in the mines, was there?
Not like, no, I won't say many incidents. I'm talking about some of these things I'm telling you about. I think that was like, in the coal mine. I personally never saw an incident when I worked on the coal mine. Never saw nobody get hurt, other than myself when I had this incident.
Yeah.
Other than that, I never saw nothing. And I also always saw, you know, people stopping people doing an unsafe act. You know, don't do that, you stupid. It's the UNC, you know.
Yeah.
So it was very blunt. It was a very blunt teaching and instrument down the coal mine. But you learned anyway. But yeah.
So, obviously, back to drilling. Started as a rowdy.
Yeah.
Where'd you go on from there?
Well, roustabout. Basically, I was only roustabout for 3 weeks, and then I was on my first trip, and then on the second week, the senior tool pusher, they just started calling them OIMs at that time, I think. He said to me, he was a Maltese guy. He said, "Do you want a roughneck job?" I said, "Okay." He goes, "Well, you got to stay on the next 2 weeks." So my first ditch was 5 weeks, and the second 2 weeks that I hitched was a roughneck. So I go and changed onto the other crew. But if you wanted to get on, that's what you did. So so basically just 3 weeks roustabout, and then I went roughnecking on the Bonanza. And then in September of that year, Smedvig bought the Bonanza, became the West Bonanza. And I stayed on that rig until we had some times where it's sort of a downturn where it didn't have a contract for a couple of months. So I went to the Fortis field off Aberdeen, did some maintenance work up there, then back again. And then when I left on the Bonanza, I left as a derrickman. So I left there in 1992 when the rig got stacked as a derrickman. And then after that, I left the oil field for like 2 years then, while they're down.
Where'd you go?
I went to Jersey, working there, repairing, started off working in a bar. Then I got a job been on the JCBs on building sites or lorries get break down. That little truck went out there, took off the tire, the wheel, took it back to the shop, repaired it, went back out and fitted it again. So that was a small job I did. That was until I met my wife, and then first wife that is, and then we moved back to a place called Stamford, Lincolnshire, where her parents had 2 pubs, and we managed one of them pubs. We had a bed and breakfast, did food, and so managed that for about a year. Before, in 1994, I got a call from Brendan Bates, the girl in the office. She actually was the HR girl when I was with a Smedvig. She gave me a call, said, "Do you want to come back offshore? We've got some painter jobs going on the FG McClintock." I said, "Yeah, certainly." She goes, "Well, blah, blah, blah. Here's the start date." I said, "I'm in Jersey. Can you get me flight tickets?" She said, "Yeah, no problem." So there I went to FG McClintock in, I think it was like in May 1994, and started as a painter. Did that for a few months, then went roustabout, then went roughneck, then pumpman, and derrickman, and then we got we got stacked in 1999. Fortunately, some of us got sent to other rigs. I went to the Paul B. Lloyd, first went to the roustabout, but ended up roughnecking, and then some went to where else some of those go? Anyway, McLean, one of the rigs McLean, but basically the ones they wanted to keep, they spread around the rigs that were working. So I stayed on the 4B Lloyd, west of Shetland. That was actually a big learning experience. That was where I saw the first iron roughneck and also the first pipe racking system. But what I was remember is we were changing VHA, going to the I think going to 9-inch collars, and the other guys, no disrespect, anyway, they changed the tongue, and I just changed the tongue myself from the small edge to the 2 big edges, balance the tongue, did it all myself. And the driller says, "You need to show them guys how to do that," because I mean these guys weren't used to using tongs; they just used to use roughneck, and very rare to such 9-inch VHA. So it basically, it was a bit of a learning experience for them and learning experience for me because I've never actually worked on a floater before. So it was quite a rough area, the west of Shetland. I don't know if you've been up there or not, but yeah, we were right next to the FPSO, the Chiari, and some rough weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from there, I went as AD to the Deepwater Discovery, which was just getting completed build in Cozy Shipyard. So I joined her there we did a 5-week training program it was a I-Tech chair then, not as no NOV chair, it was the I-Tech chair. Did the I-Tech chair training in Houston. We visited all the vendors and learned about equipment there. And then we went to Korea, which was a bit different then. In that time of day, in 2000, the rig crews weren't there for a year. We were there 5 weeks, and we did we actually helped the vendors install equipment, helped Farco, helped National Oilwell, helped them all install equipment. Where today, the guys can't touch anything.
Yeah. What? So, obviously before you came on, I asked a bit about you, what you did and stuff. But you ended up spending 15 years in deepwater drilling.
Yeah, basically, yeah. From I started in 2000. I was on the Discovery, and I was there 3 years as a driller. And then I joined Pride on the Bray, which is a TLP. It was in deep water, but obviously it's a TLP, so it's not a floater per se, but because you had a surface BOP, but we still had compensation there, obviously, but not a compensator on your block. So there, and then from there, I then went to I left Pride. I did a small spell with KCA in Sakhalin Island. Not in Sakhalin Island, in Cozy buildings, getting ready the Ludskoye and Pilton project for Sakhalin Island. I was in there a short time, then Seadrill called, or Smedvig still, and they offered me a DSL position on the Chikyu, the scientific drill ship. So I went to the Chikyu. There we did a scientific work in Japan, and then when we couldn't do scientific work in Japan, we went to Kenya and Australia, drilling for Woodside. So that was a good experience there. Do the scientific work, claw barrels and all and that, and drill and coring through tubing and things like that, which is exciting. And then after that, I went from being the DSL on the Chikyu to being the rig leader of the Chikyu. So I was actually shore-based rig leader in Japan. And I was there for maybe 6 months. And then the Chikyu was only managed by Seadrill. And then we took it in for its 5-year SPS, and they found that I think it was either 1 or 2 thrusters had problems. And the thing with this rig, it was all the equipment, except the drilling equipment, was a Japanese. And they had none. No, they had no thrusters. So basically, Seadrill came out of that contract, which is actually a good time for them because they came out in 2007, end of 2007, which is when they were starting to do the builds of all the new builds. So they got all these crews from the Chikyu who had got experience with this equipment. Again, I-Tech chair type gear, NOV I-Tech chair. It was Idrill, not Idrill. What's it called? It's not NOV now, but anyway, the pipe rackers were like a PRS6, but they weren't PRS6. And then so everybody got the experience, right? So basically, I was assigned then to the West Hercules as rig manager, which is a big challenge for me because obviously I've been a rig leader for a short time, but obviously they had confidence in me to be a rig manager. So I went to Korea where the rig was still getting built, and the rig was actually 8 months behind schedule. So I was told, this rig has to be out in November. And I think I went there in April. So, November we have to have the rig. November we have to have the rig going to sailing to China, South China Seas. So I had a lot of, the crews have been in the yard for quite a while. They were getting $100 a day per diem. They don't have to touch equipment. They can't help anything. All they can do is read books, make procedures from books, which aren't really good procedures when you make procedures from a book because you need to actually do the task first. But anyway, so we managed to get through that phase, and we got the rig out in November, and took a 7-day sail to South China Sea.
What's it like taking a rig from being built straight out into the field?
Well, this rig was a GVA 7500. The equipment wasn't was pretty new. We had a Worth Drawworks, ABS control systems, and then we also had and then NOV equipment. And there actually was maritime. It was maritime hydraulics on that rig. So we had still got 3 systems talking to each other. So the rig went out on location, started drilling, and then all the bugs started coming in. We got simple things like mud pump expansion joints blowing because the rubber used wasn't compatible to the drilling fluid that we were going to be using. And equipment was talking to each other. People don't really know how to operate equipment. There was one time when the rig was shut down. The ETs were looking around, trying to figure it out. They're in the units, looking at all the equipment, checking everything. At the end of the day, it turned out the chair had been turned off. A simple thing like that. 6 hours looking something, and just the chair had been turned off. Yeah. So basically, to answer your question, it's a very difficult job to take it out. At that time of day, you've also got crews who aren't, and not saying not experienced, but had too long in the shipyard. Spent too much time in the shipyard. So, it took them a while to get back into the mode of offshore life, how to work. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and we had a lot of. There was also there was a lot of clickiness with the crews, which stemmed from when they were first hired by the previous manager. He hired a lot of people who had a click together. So you got clicks in one department, clicks in the department. So as a rig manager, you've got to sort of like try to resolve all them. Don't let anything fester and resolve any issues that are coming up. Yeah.
You've done a bit of renewables recently. How have you found that?
So renewables, well, I went to that. Basically, the reason the director, the operations manager, who was ex-oil field as well, hired me was because of he wanted people with HSE, knowledge, and people who would use policies and procedures to develop them and also install that into the crews. Because like going into renewables then, it was a bit like going back into the first, like in late 90s offshore. It was all very this is how we do it. We've all done it this way, not really following any procedures, such just from what they know. Obviously, yourself, and you've been in renewable, where the drilling is a little bit different to the drilling in oil and gas. But end of the day, whether you're drilling or if you're flying an airplane, you still got to follow a checklist or a procedure, right? So anyway, that was the big difference I saw. Other than that, the guys were excellent. They had a great attitude, can-do attitude, because sometimes they have to make things work because they haven't got the things to do it, So they had a great attitude. Yeah, very good attitude. Yeah.
Do you see much transferable skills though from drilling to renewables?
Yeah. I mean, you got the maintenance side, it's fully transferable, and also on the drilling side, it's fully transferable. I mean, So, I mean, you've got the rudimentaries of the drilling. It's just that you're drilling at a different pace. It's not all about drilling as fast as you can or doing this. It's it's drilling so you can get the results for the CPT and things like that for the geologist. So yeah, totally transferable. It's a bit. I would compare it a bit like at one time of day, if you'd worked on a jack-up, you could never get a job on a semi. If you worked on a semi, you could never get a job on a jack-up. If you worked on a jack-up, you could never get a job on a land rig. So it's it was a bit like that. But with Geoquip Marine, because the operation manager was ex oil field himself, ex driller himself, he said we need this experience in the we need this experience. So he's looking for senior tool pushers, and I think when I was there, they hired about maybe 3 or 4 senior tool pushers from oil and gas.
So you are known for your quite heavy focus on HSE. What do you think makes you be performance driven in that field?
Well, basically, I think being performance driven is just making. It's more about if we do it's a bit like look after pennies, the pounds look after themselves, right? If we do the basics right, then everything else will fall in place. When we start missing out the steps, it's when things start to go astray. So I used to, my background is to, make the guys on the rig accountable. And that's from the roustabout to the OAM, and give them, empower them. I call it extreme ownership. Give them extreme ownership. It's quite a famous word now. I mean, there's a book called by Jocko, one of these Navy SEALs, who wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. But everything in it is just basically what I would do as well. You empower the team on the rig, you give them the training, you assess them, and then you let them do the job. You train them to do the job. And if they're doing it incorrectly, then you've got to, there's got to be there's also, for an action, there's a reaction, right? There's got to be, it can't just say, oh, don't worry about it. You've got to correct the mistakes type thing. So that's where my focus was with HSE, is the policies, the procedures, and, empower the guys to do the job, but give them the tools to do it right, And if they do start taking cut corners, then there's going to be something happens for that, So one thing I didn't do, which we can probably get back to a bit more detail, is on the with the vent store, is that what I actually brought into the vent store was to improve performance. I introduced a system called the PIP, which is a personal improvement plan. We never really had them in the oil field, and I don't think we have them today, really. But basically, what I would do is I use Seadrill's values. So it wasn't me saying, this is what you're not doing right. It was the values, and I would give the 5 values, and I would put next to each value where the guy was going wrong or what he was doing right. And I would give him this personal improvement plan and give him a certain amount of time, and let the OAM or his senior guy above him follow that plan through to fruition. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out. If it did work out, then it was better for him. And there was several tool pushers on the West Venture where I gave that performance improvement plan to, and they all followed it, agreed with it, and they went on to better things as well.
How'd you build a safety culture around teams with multinationals in it?
Again, well, that is basically done by demonstration, because yourself. You're a jock. I'm English. Sometimes we don't understand what we're saying to each other, right? So basically, we want to make sure they understand, and demonstrate. Like on the Hercules, all the junior crew, with the exception of the AD, we had a expat AD and the derrickman, not the AD. We had expat AD and Chinese derrickman. With the exception of the Chinese derrickman, all the rest of the people who were in the junior crew had no English. And all the time, I think I was there 2.5 years, we never had an LTI. We had a first aid case, but there weren't major cases. But we never had a serious incident. And so basically that was achieved by, again, taking the time to speak to people, listen to them, because you know yourself, you say somebody who doesn't understand our language, English, not our language, but English, sometimes you'll say just save embarrassment, they'll say, yeah, not there. But really, so you have to get confirmation. You've got to get confirmation as well. When you ask them to do something, you need confirmation, a demonstration or some way. Or we did have translators, of course, on board, but, you know, translators, you can't always trust them. So, you know, yeah, when you say one word, they said 10 sentences. You know, so.
How much did the performance of the actual rig do, though, with the safety culture being implemented and obviously, you know, having no LTIs and the actual operational performance? Did you notice a massive difference in that too?
Yeah, with the Hercules, it was a very big learning curve because we had a difficult client. Because the Hercules came out and then the West Aquarius came out to work for a different client, both same rigs, same equipment. Where the Hercules, the client, he signed a contract where the rig could never be on less than 50% day rate, so he wasn't very happy about that. And so they would instead of, you know, not they won't work with you, they weren't working against you, but they would make sure that if there was something that wasn't reported right, or it wasn't or a bit of downtime was occurred, then they would pin you very bit of downtime. But again, that rig went on. We had our learning curves. Some days, some weeks went without an instance of downtime, and performed well. And sometimes it wasn't. But again, you know, job as a rig manager is to keep the rig buoyant. You know, keep the atmosphere on the rig positive. You take the brunt from the client, not what was on the rig. And so that helps performance as well by, you know, the rig manager taking the slack there and trying to keep it away from the rig. But yeah, when I left, the rig was doing very well, and she continued to do well. She just stayed there another 1.5 years before she went to Canada, I believe. But I think she's still working today. She might be back in Norway, I'm not sure. But she's a good rig, you know.
What's it like being a rig manager who's looking after the client relationships, budgets, profits, basically all the political side of things? What's that like in comparison to, let's say, working in the coalface?
Yeah, you're all different. I mean, again, when clients vary, and the thing about when I was in China was I was a residential rig manager, and the client was rotational. So I was they're like a tag team, right? You know, they're fresh, they come in fresh after, every 5 weeks to come in fresh, where I'm there 7 days a week, right? So that was made it a bit hard as well for me, because I was getting battered every day by something different, and it was you know, they come in every 5 weeks and they're fresh from having 5 weeks off, full to go. But so I think I've gone away from your question. So yeah, basically, what was the question again? I think I went away.
The dealing with the client, profits, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So other than the Hercules, I do get on well with the client. Other than, you know, I mean, it's more of a political thing there than actual person relationship. When I was with the West Vencedor, I had a good relationship with the client. They were there in Cabinda, so we did like 5 weeks on, 5 weeks off in the camp up there in Cabinda. And, we saw the clients all the time. So we would meet with them all the time. And then when I went to the Vencedor, which is diversion a bit, I won't go into that, but I'll start with a different client, then a change client. You know, the Exxon changed out the guy for a different guy, and things went a lot more smoother from then on. But yeah, basically it's, you know, you got to try and keep your personality out of it. You know, it's a job for everybody to do. It's a professional job. And you've got to keep it professional, basically.
Where's the best place you ever worked?
The best place? As in, what do you mean? As in, what for?
Country, the full bifter.
Oh, country? Okay. I would say, country-wise, it would be Dubai. I was a rig manager for the coastal craft there in Dubai. I was based in Dubai. So Dubai was a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Compared to being residential if you were residential in Nigeria. So Dubai would definitely be my best. Dubai was by far my best residential posting, although Japan was good as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I should.
And China wasn't too bad as a residential posting because we're only 30 minutes away from Hong Kong, so you could go for breaks in Hong Kong. So
that's all right. Then.
That wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Younger generation, what's your advice to them nowadays, or especially the younger ones? What I've seen now, obviously in renewables, there is a lot of younger boys kind of looking about in more senior positions. So we say, what's your kind of advice to them?
Well, my advice will be, is and I'll give you an example in a bit, but I would say to them, to understand the task, the procedure, the policies involved. And then it's the most difficult part is when somebody senior than you tells you to do it a different way. So, obviously you've got to be polite and say to them, look, this is what it says, this is the procedure, this is the step we're supposed to take. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to go straight to this step. Then you got to sort of you've got to be very brave. It's still very difficult, but you got to stand up and say, well, I don't really agree with that. We need to maybe take it a step further and have another conversation about it. It was maybe the senior to push all the OM or something like that. Because the Macondos were an example of that, where things were going wrong and people didn't stop the job. Due to the fact is, I think there was a bit of I don't know the story, obviously, but obviously there must have been somebody saying something and somebody not listening, saying, "No, we're okay, let's move on."
Yeah,
I do remember a story once, which was on the West Fencidor. We were doing we're setting a plug, and we were getting fluid passed, and it was the amount getting passed was more than what's allowed by the manual. But they couldn't obviously set the plug properly. But the guy in the office wanted to continue and go ahead and say yes, good to go. And I didn't. What I did was I said no, we've got to stop. We need to stay where we are now, and we need to go and I've got to speak with my director of operations because according to my manual, this is what we're getting back is more than what's allowed. He goes, okay. He got very uppy with that about that, but it's okay. And he actually had his manager with him at the time, and he says, "I agree." He says, "You need to take the time. While we're doing that, we'll pull the plug and we'll go in with some brushes and we'll keep cleaning the brushes until we get the plug set or we get some more feedback from Seadrill." He goes, "I don't want to see this on a CNN tomorrow night." You know what I mean? So I went back to my operations manager. He said, after a bit of while talking, he says, "Well, yeah, I think we can get them sign a waiver on that. It's not that much more." But by the time we got that done, before I was going back to the office, then lo and behold, after doing several wire brush runs, they cleaned out and got the plug set correctly. So we didn't need to do anything. Yeah. So that was my time when I sort of stood up for myself and for the company and for the people on the rig on that occasion there. So that's why I would say to them. And I did a similar thing now today, just when I was actually working for RSD Global as a coach in the Middle East. I was on the rig and I got on the rig floor through, I was basically coaching the driller, not assessing him, not doing, but giving him coaching and then would assess him at the end of it type thing. But I looked out the window and I saw we're picking up 20-inch case and I looked out the window and I see the roughnecks trying to latch the 20-inch side doors from the bottom. Not only is it dangerous, we stopped doing that in the mid-90s, but anyway, plus you can hurt yourself. Anyway, and I saw a tour push come on the mid-floor, so I walked out of the doghouse and I just said, he was quite a young guy as well. I said, "Excuse me, mate." I said, do you not think we should be latching these from the top? He sort of looked at me and goes, "Why?" I goes, "Well, we stopped doing this in the 90s, latching from the bottom." I goes, "Plus, somebody's going to hurt the back or the fingers trying to pull a 20-inch side door up with a piece of rope." He goes, yeah, I suppose you're right, but I know I do this. His last comment was, I don't know why they're doing this way anyway. And obviously, I'm a third party. I didn't get into him with that. I just said, well, anyway, I said, it'd be good if we could change it round. Lo and behold, he changed it round. Instead of picking up one joint an hour, they went to pick up 2.5 joints an hour. Latching from the top, no issues, perfect. Here's the kicker. 3 days later, same client, different rig, laying out a shoe joint, 20-inch shoe joint. They'd latched the elevator from the back side, so now the elevator's on the side doors, on the doors on the bottom. 20 feet from the floor, that door opened, and that came crashing down onto the spider. Smash everywhere. When we got told about this in the pre-tower meeting, saw the video, and all he said was, "There's going to be no incident on this event because the red zone was observed, everybody's out of the red zone." That was their that. So it's like I said, that could have been like 4 people killed in that if they'd been around that rotor table, just from not following procedure. Whether the pin wasn't in, the thing obviously wasn't, the latch wasn't latched properly, the driller wasn't watching. They've been doing all shift, and the last joint is bang. Yeah, really terrifying.
It just shows you that it's still very much a dangerous industry, no matter how far we've come. Like,
no, we're only well, it's a bit like football, really, aren't you? You're only as good as your last goal or your last 3 points or whatever you want to call it. But we still got a lot of room for improvement within the industry, and I think that's why I like to get involved in the competency assessment side of things, not just people's competency in the job, but also the behaviour. How they look around, how they see their environment, how they approach time management, how they approach planning, how they communicate, teamwork, building cohesive units, all these soft skills, as they call them. And if you incorporate it all into that competency assessment and not just, you can make a connection, you can do this, you can do that. But it's not really just about ticking a box. It's about, demonstration, giving evidence, and also the behaviour side of things as well needs to be taken into account. Because even there, when I was in the Gulf of Mexico, I saw where, somebody didn't follow something, simple thing like a lineup, didn't follow the lineup, lined up to the wrong standpipe, started pumping. It's not going down the Kelly hose, it's going out the top of the standpipe. But again, but people make mistakes, and just got to make sure we, fortunately that was a very small mistake, it's spotted straight away. But it could have been something worse than that, something else wasn't lined up properly. Yeah.
What's the proudest moment of your career, do you think? Across everything? Coal mine, army, the whole shebang.
Okay. Well, I think, I know if it's just my look on things, but I've been very fortunate working down a coal mine in the army and on all the rigs I've worked on, to work on rigs that have been manned by good people, you got some people who can be a bit narky, but I would say the proudest moment is working with all those people, learning from those people who showed me what to do and mentored me, but also being able to mentor some people myself, and also hiring some good people who are now, some people are VPs, who actually I hired when I was on the Hercules. But that is a proud moment for me. But obviously, again, the West Fence store sticks out, taking her from being shut down to industrial action to 30 days later taking it to operation, and then within 12 months becoming the rig of the year in that region for the client. So but I would say, achievements, personal, them sort of achievements was the rig achievement anyway. But everything is a rig achievement. Nobody does anything on their own. So I would say again, proudest moment is being able to work with all those people, and have this experience. Yeah.
What are you up to these days anyway?
Well, now, I mean, so basically I'm into the doing the competency assessments. I was with ITB and RSD Global doing that sort of thing. So presently, I got a call about a job in Nigeria, but I think as soon as I told them the day rate, they didn't want to know anything about that. Because they want you to go there for like $100 a day or something. So,
Nigeria has become quite, it seems to be not quite the place it once was anyway.
No, I was there in 2000s with the Deepwater discovery, working out Port Harcourt and the Barmy field. But I remember that time they were with Air France. We were people who flew down there. We'd fly out there at night time. I got on the plane. We all got on the plane, fell asleep. 2 hours later, I wake up, look out, we're still on the runway. Basically, what happened was the local village had brought all the cows onto the runway so the plane couldn't take off, because apparently Air France had killed a cow or something, and they wanted to be paid remuneration for it all. So eventually Air France played up and the plane took off. But, yeah, that's one of the stories.
That was a good way. That was a good way to wrap it up, Nigel. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on.
No, I appreciate you. Thanks for asking me, Joe.
No worries at all.
Thanks very much.